With an economy in turmoil, the ever-present problems of poverty and homelessness are more visible than ever. Across the country, families and individuals are finding themselves with no money, no shelter, little food, and less hope.
It takes them so long to just get their lives together because of credit issues, because of not having a stable support group like a family or a church home, so they feel stuck.
Sometimes you don't know whether to have compassion on them or whether you need to have other feelings about them, because they come with various stages of living, some with no food, some with no clothing, some with no place to stay.
But there exists a form of homelessness outside of what the public traditionally perceives as homeless.
We've discovered that there is a fringe problem in homelessness with motel homeless. People who go to motels, often they have children, many children, and sometimes there are two generations. Grandma, grandpa are there as well. Usually the people that go to these motels are people who've just lost their jobs. They're working class people. Some of them are poor, some of them maybe are not so poor. It's a temporary situation. Now it's designed to keep the family together, and I am for keeping the family together as much as you possibly can. It's probably better for a short-term situation than going to a shelter. But because the shelter generally shelters men on one side and women on the other side, and we don't want the family to be split up, broken up. So for a temporary situation, if the family is strong, stable, a motel may be the answer, only on a temporary basis.
The high rates on these motels that charges people so much money, they can't even dream about getting out of there because it's so expensive.
Stuck in a seemingly endless cycle of motel payments, job hunting, and debt, these motel families disappear from the public eye.
Ashland Supported Housing is a non-profit organization. What the organization does is that we help people who are in danger of becoming homeless or who are already homeless. We assist them with rental assistance, utilities, mortgage assistance, and we try to help them find permanent housing. We try to go out here and work with the property manager, landlords, and talk them into lowering the rent a little bit. We try to find one-room apartments or duplex where they could probably bundle up with someone else and they go together on the rent. And even if the rent's like $700 or $800, a lot of these families can't even afford it.
Ashland, Virginia lies just 15 miles north of Richmond. With a population of roughly 7,000 and home to the beautiful Randolph-Macon College campus, this community is the very definition of picturesque.
When you're living in a rural area, a small town like Ashland, all of the people here, they're like your family. The faith-based communities, the churches, the town government, your neighbor, all of these people, they care so much and they reach out to you versus if you were in a large city. The thing about rural areas, especially the town of Ashland, Caroline County, Henrico County, is that it's invisible. You don't see it versus if you go to an urban area like downtown Richmond, it's right in your face.
Even in this most idyllic of environments, poverty and homelessness lurk just out of view. Keisha and her two sons have been living in Ashland motels for 14 months.
It started when I was staying in a trailer and I had a job working, and I wasn't working that many hours, just 2 days a week or sometimes and everything, and I couldn't afford to pay my bills and everything, so I just ended up back here in Ashland. One of those teenagers just want to party and play, and see where it got me is right here. I have 2 kids, no high school diploma. It's very hard for me to find a job without a high school diploma. And I want to get my high school diploma or GED, anything to help to get a better job, to better myself.
Hi.
I was staying in another hotel, and basically every day me and my son is out trying to find a job. And I put in an application, have interviews, and basically people wasn't hiring around here. And at first I gave up, but then I was like, no, I gotta keep on for my boys.
Well, it affects me most of the time. Like, if I want to go to one of my friends' houses, I can't. If I want to do like a sport, I know I can't get back and forth to that sport.
Kids do tease kids by them staying in a hotel and everything, and my son do want to have friends to come over, but I suggest that the kids really don't come over here because the place that I'm staying in, I don't want them to come over to a hotel. Basically, the parents probably don't want the kids to come over. Most of these people are working people. It's because they credit. They can't find nowhere for to go. Basically, everyone wants to check on their credit, their background and everything. And basically, it's about our past. That's what keeping us from getting into affordable homes or apartments. My routine at living at this hotel is paying my rent every week that I can afford, and if I don't pay it, I have to get on the phone every morning calling different churches, ACEs, the WEEP program, everyone that's helping me. They've been helping me to help pay for this rent for me and my kids to stay here. During the week, living here, everyone think it's easy living in a hotel, but it's not.
Taking up residence in a motel is not resort living. And even though families may stay there for years, motels are certainly not stable housing. Lodgers rarely are able to negotiate long-term rates, and an inability to pay is met with immediate eviction.
And this presents a very difficult situation. It's not the best environment for a child to be in, as a matter of fact. Often there's crime, drugs, prostitution, other kinds of crime. It's just not an environment that's good for children especially.
Well, I moved from one hotel to another one because that one was very, very bad, a very bad environment. If you don't pay the rent, they will put you out. They will put a lock on the door, they will keep your things, and you will not be able to get it. My rent is $231 a week.
$231 a week adds up quickly. That's $33 a day, $990 a month, and $12,045 a year. For a family existing on low-paying jobs and charitable donations, motel living can quickly turn into a financial hell. A minimum wage job in Virginia pays $7.25 an hour. Assuming a worker is lucky enough to find a full-time job of 40 hours per week, he will bring home only slightly over $15,000 a year. Assuming no supplemental income, an employee has just over $3,000 to cover food, clothing, transportation, and health care. ACES, Ashland Christian Emergency Services, has acted as a beacon of hope for decades.
Everything you see in here has been donated. Nothing's been bought. And everything in here is given away. Nobody's charged anything for it. And we also have, I guess, about 25 or more volunteers that give their time here. So we have a very dedicated a bunch of people who are very dedicated to trying to meet the needs of the people that come in here.
We had served 6,740 people from 2,906 families. We recorded 381 new families since the first of the year. So there's a lot of people, because of the economy, losing their jobs or whatever, that are coming into our agency for assistance. We helped 59 families towards their electric bills. 30 families were assisted with rent. We assisted in lodging for 21. 12 families were helped with utilities, mostly water bills. And we had some people, we helped with prescription drugs. We distributed 28,591 food items, serving a total of 1,007 people.
And ACES is by no means the only organization providing charitable services to those in need. The Salvation Army provides services and education to prevent homelessness.
The Salvation Army and a number of nonprofits in the city of Richmond do provide shelter for people who are homeless, and usually this is for a month, and the emphasis is on finding a job. Emphasis is on dealing with barriers such as drug addiction, that sort of thing. Richmond, as a city, has a very sophisticated network of social service programs for the homeless, and I can understand why the counties want to refer people to the city of Richmond because of its capacity. But we've discovered that there is a fringe problem in homelessness with motel homeless, and so often families continue to stay there. You know, it's not like a shelter where they're there a month and then they are able to find a job, or they're able to find some kind of program that they can get in on a more permanent basis. But it just tends to go on, and it's not good. We want to do whatever we can to keep that from being the permanent location of people. It should be a temporary situation, sort of like a shelter.
The Salvation Army has noted barriers to success.
The barriers are the usual barriers. The barrier of skill developing, workforce development skills that enable the incumbent to find a job, to keep a job, to make enough money to afford a house to live in, whether it's rent or buying a home. So that's the issue with the general field of homeless, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, and mental health are the greater barriers. But for this other segment, it's just working class people who are out of work. They need to be retooled and reskilled in order to find a new career or a new job. And that needs to be the emphasis of governments and of nonprofits and private groups and individuals. I learned a long time ago that to be successful, you need three things. You need ability, basic ability. We need to help people with skills. You need ambition, the motivation, and the encouragement, and you need a sponsor. All of us have had sponsors, whether it's our families. Most of us, that has been true. It has been our families, but in some cases, our family is disintegrating. Families are disintegrating, and that's where nonprofits and churches step in and become the help and the sponsor that we all need.
Virtually everyone agrees that the best solution to combating homelessness is preventing it from happening in the first place.
Like I say, I've been here about 22 years, and I've seen the children of people back then have grown up, and now they're coming back. The grandmothers are taking care of a lot of the grandchildren, and they're coming in now to take care of the grandchildren, getting clothing and food for them, because seems to be a separation between the generations, and the grandmothers are getting older now, and I'm not sure what's going to happen in the next phase when these grandmothers are not able to take care of their grandchildren.
Well, certainly we don't want to deal with social issues. Most of us don't, unless it attaches to us in some personal way. And it's a matter of education through our schools, through our churches, through our community centers, through our government. It's a matter of telling people, giving the message. Yes, we are our brother's keeper.
Organizations such as ACES, the Salvation Army, and governmental agencies such as social services all encourage prevention efforts. These organizations act like guardrails on a freeway. As individuals and families move along the freeway, they find that the road is never entirely smooth. Rather, the road of life has twists and turns and the occasional bump. A missed credit payment, an illness in the family, a home foreclosure, a job loss. It's up to family, friends, and personal willpower to stay in the center of the lane. Sometimes this support isn't enough, and it falls to support organizations to get an individual back on the road. Some problems, however, are just too great for support organizations to handle. For Melissa and Bill, their brief stay at a motel is a welcome change from life in a car.
My name is Melissa, and this is my friend Bill, who I am his caretaker, as well as his longtime friend. I was laid off December 15th, which is a result of that. We lost our home, and we went into my car for 3 days, and it was very difficult having a 78-year-old man in the car. Saturday is the last day, 10 a.m., and there is no plan to be had. It will be the car again because we have no money. It was horrible, it was cold, it was scary, it was dark. I had to stay awake to make sure nobody came to the car to do any harm to us because he's elderly. It affected him horribly. The last night we were in the car, it was extremely cold. The temperatures had dropped, and I knew he's gonna die. So, exposure, he's elderly. So, somebody told us we could shower at Daily Planet, and we did.
For some, shelters are not an acceptable option.
You have to go through an intake now, and you're not guaranteed a bed. So not being guaranteed a bed and letting them take him to some other part of a building to wait for hours, me to another, I couldn't let that happen. This is like a palace. I mean, we had a nice home, but this is like a palace compared to that car. I mean, my car is small, so all our clothes are in the back. It's 2 bucket seats and you sit straight up. That's horrible.
Wayne has found himself in a similar situation.
Our Ashland resident for quite many years. I recently lost my job. It put me through some hard times, and it led me to be homeless. I was actually raised pretty much and growing up here, went to Patrick Henry High, played football, played baseball, softball, wrestling team. I actually thought I had life figured out, but things happen, I've always worked, a hard worker. The feeling of not knowing is just a very bad feeling. I look at today's society and I actually wonder about, can I be a part of that, or can I be a part of this? And one thing about it, I'm not trying to ask for any handouts or anything out of the unordinary. I'm asking for help. And sometimes life gives people a bad dealing, and for me to be able to get a job, that would be greatly appreciated. My main goal right now is just to pocket as much money as I can so I can get an apartment, whether it's a 1-bedroom, efficiency, it really doesn't matter. It's point where just being able to lay my head, being able to have a hot food in your belly, and of course a shower. Like I said, there's been times where I've been homeless and haven't had a shower in a couple of days, and it's very, very shameful, because I was never raised like that, and I never want to be a part of that life. But again, it is what it is. Regardless of what my past is, a lot of people judge me, and I feel it's wrong. I've made mistakes. I've changed my life, and I just ask for a chance.
Apartments are larger, safer, and more flexible than motel rooms. Leasing an apartment builds credit and provides families with an easily identifiable area to call home. Best of all, apartment living is often cheaper than motel living. There are hidden benefits to leasing an apartment as well. It is easier to store and cook healthier meals in an apartment and to get more exercise. As a result, healthcare costs may go down and quality of life goes up. With so many benefits, why isn't everyone moving into an apartment?
Well, often it's the down payment or the lease agreement that they have to come up with. It's generally a large amount of money. That's one barrier. But I can't think of anybody who would rather just stay in one room in a motel with the whole family than living in an apartment. So I think they want to be able to do that. It's background checks that are required often by people who own apartments, and they just can't seem to get over that hurdle. And that's why a case manager would be helpful in helping people to somehow plan through and accomplish the result of independence.
Pamela Wise manages Ashland Town Square, an apartment community in the town.
Leasing an apartment is a financial transaction that starts with the apartment community, providing the applicant with a written resident selection criteria. This states clearly what is required of the applicant, what's acceptable and what's unacceptable, and what it takes to lease an apartment at that community. Our policy is to actively pursue and offer equal housing opportunities to all persons regardless of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, handicap, familial status, elderliness. Collectively as a household, you have to have a minimum of 3 times the monthly rent to qualify. This community uses a third-party credit scoring agency. It's a statistical formula that determines your credit worthiness. They make the decision whether to accept the application or to make the application conditional, which might require an additional security deposit, or even to deny the application. And we never see anyone's credit. It's none of our business what their personal credit is. What we get from, and what most credit scoring companies provide, is just decision points: accepted, conditional, or denied. So the applicant really needs to know that that person that they're working with is, if they're doing their job, they're doing everything they possibly can to provide them with housing. And if there's a reason that they can't, or that the application doesn't go through, it's not the person processing the application. It's something that's happened in the applicant's past, something that's a historical fact. This community also does a criminal background check on all persons 18 or older. The application will be denied if there's ever been a conviction of a sex crime, for up to 10 years afterwards if convicted of any felony, and for up to 10 years afterwards if convicted of a misdemeanor of a drug-related offense, including petty offenses, prostitution-related crimes, cruelty to animals, assault and battery, and it also involves domestic violence convictions. Everyone 18 and older must go through this screening. Prior rental references are verified. If there's been over 3 late payments for up to 36 months, if there's been unlawful detainers, if there's been evictions or behavioral habits that have been problems, then the application can be denied. If an applicant cannot cover the entire income minimum requirement on their own, they have the option, as long as there's not a criminal background or an eviction, they have the option of paying the lease off in advance. For 2 people on a 2-bedroom apartment, that can be a little over $11,000 that someone needs to come up with prior to their just moving in. Other circumstances, some apartment communities can take co-signers. Now, a co-signer needs to be a resident of Virginia. They need to make 4 times the monthly rent. They need to have blemish-free credit and be an immediate family member.
For those families who stop payments, action comes quickly.
It's a much shorter period of time than people think. The Virginia landlord-tenant law says we need to serve a 5-day notice when we consider it late. So on the 6th of the month, you serve a 5-day material noncompliance for failure to pay rent. 5 days after that, you can file an unlawful detainer in your local court and set up a court date. Someone is late on the rent this month, there's a court date established anywhere from the 2nd or the 3rd week of the next month.
If the tenant communicates problems to the landlord, disaster can be averted.
Normally a landlord does not waive their procedures. A landlord will suggest outside resources for you. A landlord will suggest help. A landlord will sit down and say, what have you planned? How are you going to handle this temporary problem? A landlord's position is not to finance your lifestyle, though. So if you can't pay by that certain time, because the landlord must be consistent in everything they do with everyone they do it for, court proceedings do go on. So you always hope that there's communication between the landlord and the resident. Not that the landlord can say, I can cut you a deal, I can help you, I can waive certain things, but so that the landlord and the resident are on the same page. They know the same timeline, and the landlord should always treat the resident with respect. This is a very hard time for them and their family. That's why we have community programs. That's why we have community servicing agencies that assist in that way. The landlord can't decide who gets charity and who doesn't get charity. They need to proceed exactly like they do in each and every case. And it does sound hard, but that is basically the reality.
Despite the difficulty of recovering, hope does exist for the motel homeless.
We had to move into a motel room, and we stayed for 2.5 months.
It's $244 a week.
Yeah. For one king-size bed, a dresser, and a refrigerator.
Gary and Gail were able to remain upbeat during their 2-month motel stay.
But what I tried to do is make it as homey as possible. Like I made one little area just for Kenny so he could watch or listen to his radio and play with his games. And then on the dresser and stuff, we had a refrigerator, but we didn't have anything else. And the refrigerator was only like this big. But I tried to make it as homey as possible by putting the microwave out there, coffee pot, and every night when he came home from work, I had dinner cooking. So when he took a shower, he came out of the shower and we ate dinner, and we tried to make it like an apartment even though it wasn't. And we had a little round frying pan and my coffee pot. And to make vegetables, I just poured water through the coffee pot and let it heat up that way. I actually had to throw my coffee pot away because it tasted vegetable-y.
But even with a positive attitude, motel living isn't easy.
I never sat down and said that. I told her I would work 6-7 days a week, whatever it took, to get us into that house.
Yeah.
We already had agreement with the landlord, which was great. And like I said, I'm the only one that they got to depend on, her and Kenny. So if I would have gave up and stopped working and say, well, we're done, we will sit here. And then we would have got kicked out of the motel because I couldn't afford to pay for that.
Good people do exist, and with perseverance, even the most difficult situations will pass by.
So we was out riding around, and we pulled up and seen a sign out there, said for rent. Looked in the windows, called him, and he's a great man, gave us a great deal.
Oh yes, he did.
Told us that normally he would charge double, for your deposit and all that, but he felt like, he said he's going to say a prayer and he would call us back. And about 2 hours later, he called us back. He said, I had another lady whose credit is better than y'all's, but God told me to give y'all a chance.
Yeah.
That y'all are good people. I want y'all to move in. So it was something like $3,000.
Yeah.
And he said, what do you got now? I have $1,000. He said, give me $1,000, come get your key, make payments on the rest of the deposit.
Yeah.
Very, very nice man. And then this year at Christmas time, we went to pay our rent. And he gave her the receipt and gave her the money back.
Yeah.
He said, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Y'all try really hard. My house looks good. You keep it up. And we didn't have to pay rent for January.
That just made me feel so good. There's good people out there.
That was a great Christmas present.
Yes.
Even with perseverance and hard work, will homelessness ever go away?
Probably not. Jesus said, the poor you have with you always. And it's relative poverty in some cases in America. I have seen us improve over the last 50 years. We have very little, what I call is abject or total poverty. It's probably the Delta in Mississippi, some of the Indian tribes, some of the inner city sections of our country. But that doesn't say that we don't have some poverty issues we need to address, for we do, and we should be addressing those issues. Well, there's a role for emergency shelters always, and we need them, but we need neighbor helping neighbor as well, and we can do that in smaller communities better than we can in big cities. So because we have a greater sense of what a community is about in a smaller community like Ashland or some of the smaller communities around here. So we need leadership in that and designing those kinds of programs to help people know where to go when these emergency situations arise.
It's people's outlook. That's the main thing on how you deal with the situation you're handed. Some people don't handle it too well. Some people don't know how to handle it.
A lot of people maybe had great lives when they was children, had everything handed to them, and then when something like this happens,
They don't
it's like
know how
the
to
end of
deal
the
with
world. I had a rough childhood. I've been working since I was 15. Never really had no life besides work. So I was kind of used to it, and I knew it was just another rut I was in that I will get out eventually.
Yeah. And my parents raised all of us children to believe that the world doesn't owe us anything, that we owe the world. You know, and if you keep a positive attitude, positive things will happen. If you keep a negative attitude, negative things are going to happen. And that's, I don't know, karma, I guess you'd want to call it.
Shelter is generally a backup plan. We don't really want people in shelters. We don't want them in motels living a long period of time either. So we want to work with them, make sure that they work on their plan and then move forward in accomplishing the results of that plan.
Homelessness is not a problem that only affects other people. It can happen to anyone, almost always at the least expected time.
Everybody's been they haven't judged us, and that's the important thing. Anybody can be homeless, so to judge someone, it doesn't feel good. Because, you know, we're normal. We're not trash, we work, we don't take handouts. We're good people. We have good hearts, and we're honest people. That's one thing I do have, honesty and dignity, and throughout it all, I refuse to lose my dignity or my honesty or who I am. I would sleep in my car first. It's just, I'm not going to lose who I am as a person. I mean, when you're in a situation like that, you don't know. You don't know what to do. You know, people look at you like, you know, no, they can't be homeless. But yeah, we are. And we're normal working people. There's no options. I mean, I've worked hard all my life, and he's worked hard all his life. I'm a dog groomer. I've groomed dogs for 26 years. I'm very good at what I do. I'm not used to living like this.
I was actually in the construction business running heavy equipment. I've also have certifications in the chainsaw operations through the Virginia Department of Forestry, as well as in-ground and above-ground swimming pool building. I was actually with a company for a period of time, and things became short because of the economy, and he was pretty much a small business, and he basically didn't want to do it, but he had to eventually lay off of quite a few people, as well as sell his 52 pieces of equipment. He was maintaining an apartment. It was actually maintaining a 3-bedroom apartment, a very decent place, and the bills became too stressful for me. In the same token, you know, the landlord has pretty much helped me through the situation as much as he could, but I can understand his aspect of things. It's business. You know, business is business.
I made good money. I worked hard. I even worked hard. You know, we have things. We have a life. And, you know, it's gone.
Hope is never lost, however. Anyone and everyone can help alleviate this widespread problem.
Well, as a general rule, it just makes sense that every community should take care of those in the community who are in need, their own families. And I think the counties generally try to do that. It's this specific area of homeless population where they have to go to a shelter. Nobody wants to build a shelter in a community, you know, not in my backyard. We don't want that. But sometimes we may have to do that on a temporary basis. But I think the secret in the counties, especially the less populated counties, is to educate all of us. Now, here's how we can help, you know. Find a group of churches and let's educate each other and reach out to make sure people aren't homeless in the first place. Prevention is so much more powerful than cure. So if we can prevent people from becoming homeless through good jobs, living wages, and that would go further than anything to keep people from moving into this homeless state.
That's why it's really important that if you know somebody's down on their luck and you can help them in any way, shape, or form, to do it. I mean, that's how God wanted it to be in the first place. It really is, to help each other. That's what we're here for.
And you do something good for somebody, one day it comes back to you.
Yeah.
Look.
If you're living there and you have 4 or 5 children, I mean, what do?
At least you got a roof over your head temporarily, but everybody can get out.
Yeah.
That's the way.
And everyone
there's people
deserves
that
a
will help
home.
you, but you just can't give up. You got to keep going. And if you feel like giving up, look over at your children.
Yeah.
You know, say, well,
Or
if
just-
I give up, they got nothing.
When the early morning calls me and I can't get out of bed, with my body sore and broken and an aching in my head, when I just can't be bothered with living day to day, like no one else, you take the pain away. On a sunny day in winter, a picture broke my heart.